Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by State Farm and by AutoTrader.
Good morning and welcome to Fantasy Football Live here on Yahoo Sports. I'm Liz Loza and I'm joined as always by the usual suspects. We've got Andy Behrens in Michigan, Matt Harmon in Los Angeles, Hank Williams in San Francisco, and betting analyst Minty Betts in Las Vegas. Guys, there is still time to make that final push to the fantasy playoffs. What are you most looking at here in week 10? Andy, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I gotta say, I can tell you all about my fantasy problems, but we've all got them. We've all got issues. I think the thing that I'm actually most looking forward to this week is that we get the return of Russell Wilson. We get the return of Aaron Rodgers. We got snow on the ground in Green Bay. That thing is going to be really fun. We were this close to it being Jordan Love and Geno Smith, but everybody's back, and I'm excited about it.
All right, Matt, what about you? What are you excited for?
Oh, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson returning. Those are some cute quarterback names, but you could not possibly find anything that's got me more excited than Cam Newton is back in Carolina. I mean, number one, what year is this? Number two, I know he's not going to start today. He's not a fantasy option for you, blah, 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 blah. But, like, come on. I mean, everybody knows out there I've got a complicated relationship with the Carolina Panthers, but I will admit, my heart made a little flutter this week when I saw Cam Newton back behind, the Panthers logo, all that stuff. It's exciting, it's weird, but it is interesting, and at least it saves the Panthers from being like a complete and utter embarrassment. So even if it isn't the big news this week, I am very excited about that.
The Carolina Panthers keep pounding, and so does Matt Harmon's heart. Tank, what about you?
Man, I'm looking at Cleveland at New England in the M&M game. Like, can the real contender please stand up? Like, we have Mac Jones, who everyone's applauding for being like a system quarterback and just kind of keeping things afloat. Baker Mayfield catches hell for doing the same thing. We have everyone beating Andy over the head with questions about Dearness Johnson and Ramondre Stevenson. So make sure all those questions go to Andy during the show. And so really, I just want to see which one of these teams stand up and really show that they're going to be the one that's in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, that matchup is definitely like the man in the mirror kind of matchup. Two very similar teams. Minty, what's going on at the sportsbook? I mean, there's so much chaos. How are people using their money to follow it?
So much chaos. We're seeing a lot of money on a lot of different games today and some surprising bets, which I'm super excited to share with you guys in a couple segments.
Ooh, all right. Well, for me, I know, right? Tank, she's spicy in there. Maybe she'll take a couple overs. We'll see. I'd appreciate a little stability. I mean, good morning. Look at this. But if the Thursday night game or the Saturday news cycle or heck, this morning is any indication, I think that the chaos will indeed continue. But hopefully we can get some clarity on some injuries and then maybe start rethinking depth charts. In the meantime, I imagine y'all have a lot of questions, our viewers. So please go ahead and send them to us on Twitter using the AskFFL hashtag, or you can drop one in the chat and we'll try to get to as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is vigilantly answering questions all morning long on Twitter. Whew! All right, guys, let's talk about injuries. So let's turn our attention to the injury reports now. There's more than a few. Let's start with Ramondre Stevenson. He has been cleared from concussion protocol and is active against Cleveland. He's expected to start with Damian Harris out. Chris Godwin logged just one practice this week, but he will go today in the nation's capital. He's been dealing with a foot injury, and the Bucs are still without Gronk and Antonio Brown. James Robinson, he's active today for the Jags. He was a game-time decision, and it looks like his heel injury won't keep him out against Indy. Kyler Murray, I'm sweating this one, is still listed as questionable for this afternoon's matchup against Carolina, although reports indicate that the Cardinals are pessimistic that he suits up. DeAndre Hopkins also not expected to play, but at least Rondale Moore should be in there for Arizona. All right, that is the latest. Now it's time to get into our first over-under. Andy, lead the way, please.
All right, first over-under of the show. You know, we've already name-dropped a bunch of former All-Pro quarterbacks, legends, former MVPs. Now we're going to talk about Teddy Bridgewater. That's what the people came here for. We have set the number here at 274.5 passing yards. I'll get us started. I think he goes over. I think we picked on the Philadelphia defense in last week's over-unders as well. This defense is so soft. In 5 of their last 7 games, they have allowed an opponent's completion percentage over 80%. They are allowing opposing quarterbacks to complete over 75% of their throws on the season. They don't even force incompletions. So we know that we're never going to get like some monster week out of Teddy. He's probably not going to throw 4 or 5 touchdowns, but he's got the whole gang this week. He's got Cortland Sutton, Judy, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant. They're all healthy. They're all going to be active in this one. It is a great spot for him, and I think he goes over this number. Matt, what do you say?
Yeah, you totally hit on it. Pillow soft defense by the Philadelphia Eagles, allowing the lowest ADOT, the highest completion percentage in the league. And I mean, listen, is any other quarterback just totally willing to be like, okay, yeah, you want me to dink and dunk on you? I will dink and dunk all day long. That is Teddy Bridgewater's game. This is a perfect matchup for Teddy Bridgewater. I am also going over with his entire cast of characters there. Give me the over on this one for sure.
Liz, can we make it a sweep?
No, we certainly can't. I mean, you're mentioning this pillow soft defense. Okay, is there a quarterback or a system rather, especially with Pat Shurmur not on the sideline because he's on the COVID list, more willing to lean on the run when they take a lead in a game? Come on. Plus, this offensive line is super banged up, likely to have like 3 of the offensive linemen not active today. Teddy has only cleared this mark 3 times all season, and 2 of those were in losing efforts while he was chasing points. The other one was against Jacksonville. So come on, do we expect Denver to win this game? Yeah. So I'm not expecting Teddy to force anything, and I don't think he goes over.
Oh, I hate when the person who takes the under makes really good points. You make sense. You make sense. We're going to have more over-unders coming up later in the show. Right now, let's send it to Tank for a little DFS talk.
Yeah, holla. State Farm still repping with my primetime ballers. Now, shout out to the homie Jake and Bicep Betty. It's time for our surprisingly great rates by State Farm. Now, my DFS value plays can fit in any budget, just like State Farm offers surprisingly great rates with coverage that meets your needs. How you love that. Now, let's dig into the Sunday night matchup between the Chiefs and the Raiders. The Chiefs are coming in with an ugly win against the Packers, and the Raiders are coming in with an ugly loss against the Giants. So let's see if these 2 teams can bump uglies and create something beautiful on Sunday night. And that's why I'm going with Darrell Williams, because the only way that KC offense is going to look good is that they establish the run. So many times we've seen Patrick Mahomes pass up on the run game, check to a deep pass, or pass up on an open wide receiver in the middle of the field to go deep, run the ball effectively, take what's over the middle, and that'll get your offense clicking. So I think they do that this week versus the Raiders. That's why I like Darrell Williams right here at $17. Moving over to the Raiders, Derek Carr. If you look at him, I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders, they throw the ball for the 2nd most yards in the league right now. Derek Carr in the 2 previous games that they played against Kansas City last year had 3 tubs in each of those. I think he replicates that this week. I think the Raiders offense continues to push the ball downfield with Deshaun Jackson as that deep threat to try to open things up underneath. So I really like him in this spot going up against a Kansas City team that's still trying to get their offense together. And that, my superstar, you may think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but nah. I'm going with Travis Kelce. Like, he balled out in both outings against the Raiders last year. He had a touchdown last week, so they're starting to get him more involved in the game. And it's kind of alluding to what I was talking about with Darrell Williams. Like, Travis Kelce was open so many times in the middle of the field, and Patrick Mahomes passed up on those options. I think he takes advantage in this game and sends Kelce over as a superstar this week. Now, we're moving over to the Monday night game. OBJ finally walks down the red carpet with the Los Angeles Rams. No Bobby Trees. Pour out a little looking for my boy. I know how those ACL injuries go. Are we going to have a minivan or full-size van, Jefferson? I mean, but ultimately, Monday Night Football, you got to talk about the best show on the slate for Monday Night Football. Josh Norman is in the house. Oh, Josh Norman is in the house, and that's going to lead to the superstar. But first, we're going to start off with Matthew Stafford coming in at $34. They got their head beat in by the Titans last week, so you know they want to bounce back. They got all the eyes on them after making the OBJ trade. I think Matthew Stafford comes with it against the San Francisco 49ers. On the flip side, I'm going with George Kittle. On paper, it doesn't look like a really good matchup, but one thing I noticed early in the year is that Cliff Kingsbury always attacks the 49ers up the middle of the field. He always uses his tight ends to exploit them. My man George Kittle had 6 receptions, 101 yards in the tub versus Arizona last week. I think that Shanahan maybe follows that blueprint and tries to attack that Los Angeles Rams defense up the middle with Kittle, your best weapon on offense. Go ahead and let him shine. And my superstar, you know who it is, Cooper Kupp, $37. I don't want to look at the stats. I understand the San Francisco 49ers give up like the 7th fewest wide receiver fantasy points, but hey, I don't care if he's in the middle, in the slot, or out wide. Josh Norman is in that secondary, and this dude is like still recovering from the Derrick Henry stiff arm to the chest. Cliff Kingsbury got in his tail last week. Everybody thought he was going to get cut, but nah. Shanahan kept him for this moment to be on Monday Night Football and get embarrassed by Cooper Kupp. And that's what I'm here for. And so whether you lace him up on Sundays or Monday, or you're locking in your lineup at the last minute with us, State Farm offers surprisingly great rates on car insurance. So like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Get a quote today.
All right, guys, time for some big bets from the sportsbook. Normally, I just give you guys some trends and maybe a big bet or two here and there, but this is going to be full of major wagers. So let's start with some sides. We've got $50,000 on the New England Patriots -2.5 over the Browns today, and a couple other low 5-figure bets. This is going to actually be one of the biggest decision makers in the early slate of games for books. We've also got $44,000 on the Saints +3 over the Titans, and $30,000 on the Seahawks +3.5 over the Packers. I actually really like that last one here. On to some totals. $30,000 on the over, 54.5 for the Falcons and Cowboys. $55,000 on the over, 47.5 points for the Bills and Jets game. I don't know about that one. And a big future bet earlier this week. A bettor placed $10,000 to win $300,000 on the Browns to win the Super Bowl at 30-1 odds. Those are some big bets here, and those all cost more than my Subaru. I'll be back in a bit for my best bets for week 10.
All right, let's get to our first check-in on social media this morning and answer some roster questions. Don't forget to send your questions to the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from Christopher, and Christopher asks, I can't believe I'm really asking this question. Well, you are. Do I start Patrick Mahomes, or Derek Carr at quarterback? You know what? Let's get crazy. Tank, why don't you take this one first?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like both of these quarterbacks should have pretty decent games. I think the way that Kansas City gets their offense back on track is to run the ball. So I see Patrick Mahomes having a decent game, 2 touchdowns, but I actually think that Derek Carr will throw for 1 more in a more pass-heavy offense, what should be a more pass-heavy offense. So I would lean Derek Carr, even though you can't go wrong, and it's really hard to bench Patrick Mahomes if you got him on your squad.
All right, let's get to another one. This next one is from Sean, and Sean is in need of a running back because he's got David Montgomery on bye and Kamara out this week. Yikes. So is it Jeremy McNichols, Alex Collins, because we know Chris Carson still is out, or Ramondre Stevenson? Full PPR though. Andy, to me this is between Collins or McNichols given the format. Who are you choosing?
Oh my goodness, I'm taking door number 3. I'm kind of all in on Ramondre Stevenson this week. He's coming off a game in which he led the Patriots in both rushing and receiving, right? And then maybe the receiving was a little bit of a fluke because he had one really long one, but they will throw to him. He's basically stepping into that Damian Harris role, and that has meant a touchdown every week for the last 5 games, right? He's got 6 touchdowns over his last 5. I'm pretty all in on Stevenson here. I'm not that excited about Alex Collins. He's just simply not that exciting a player. I get it with McNichols. He could see a bunch of receptions in this one, but I feel pretty confident that Stevenson finds the end zone.
A ringing endorsement for the rookie from the Rev. My goodness, so many R's. All right, let's get to the next one. Steve has a question, and this is topical. Matt, I'm gonna have to go to you with this one because it's about Van Jefferson. Should he start the Rams Van Jefferson, or someone you talked about as being the linchpin, frankly, of the Bills' offense, Dawson Knox, who's back this week.
Well, shout out to you, Steve, for having good enough tight end options where you're like, I don't know if I need to play Dawson Knox right away. That's a good-looking work by you, Steve-O. No, I'd probably go with Van Jefferson, though. I do always, when you have a good option, and clearly you've got a good option at tight end that you don't have to throw Dawson Knox out there, and I think Van Jefferson is a really, really good option as well. I'd always prefer to play it a little conservative with guys coming off a long injury absence. You know, if they're just popping up on their injury report this week, that's one thing, but when we haven't seen him for a while, there are a lot of other targets to go around. I think Dawson Knox can have a fine game. It's tough to go away from a team in Buffalo that's projected for one of the highest point totals on the slate, but I really like Van Jefferson's outlook as the more established guy ahead of Odell Beckham, going against a 49ers defense that is just straight up bad all across the board.
Thank you, Matt. That is actually the perfect segue to our next tweet, which is from Adrian. Adrian wants to know if they should start OBJ or Adam Thielen. Tank, tell the people.
Man, I mean, I know people been wanting to start OBJ so bad this whole year, and so then you get him on this primetime game. It's like, man, can I start him? Like, honestly, I mean, we know the offense runs through Cooper Kupp. It's really going to take OBJ at least a couple weeks to get up to speed. Like, I'm just imagining him trying to be in a 2-minute drill. Like, will he have a full comprehension of, like, the signals, like, where to line up in the formation, like, with those, like, quick decisions, like, if he's changing routes on the fly. So I feel like he may have a set package in early downs, so he may not get the run that we need. Therefore, I'm going with Adam Thielen, even though you would expect for it to be a Dalvin Cook-type game going against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh, Tank, just tell him that the only thing on schedule about OBJ are his tweets. Let's go. Time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we identify some players who are pretty much matchup proof the rest of the way. Wouldn't that be nice? Don't go away.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon.
Yeah,
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect!
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free, live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
With loads of flex decisions to be made every week, let's look at some players who have solidified their place on fantasy rosters. Finally, it's easy, presented by AutoTrader. Just like AutoTrader makes it easy to buy a car, these players are now surefire options to plug into your lineup each and every week. Matt, honestly, I can't believe you're doing this again. Let's hear about it.
Finally is the perfect word to use for talking about Brandon Ayuk. And Tank, we say the name once more. Brandon Ayuk, baby. Over the last 2 weeks, he leads the 49ers in routes run. He has 15 targets over that span. We saw last week, it was basically a dead even heat between George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel in targets. I expect that to kind of be the case going forward. Apparently, Kyle Shanahan and Brandon Ayuk had some words with John Lynch as the mediator there. I mean, I got a little nervous after that fumble against the Cardinals, but nothing changed. He went out there, and he's been good in legitimately exactly what we expected in fantasy over the last 2 weeks when we were drafting him in August. He is a top 24 wide receiver in points per game over the last 2 weeks. The playing time is there. The opportunity is there. Strangely enough, the good vibes are there between Shanahan and Brandon Ayuk. The guy is out of the doghouse. Things are good. I have had a literal tweet deck column up all year long, like just making sure I get any alerts about any good news about Brandon Ayuk just to prove that I'm not a crazy person. And, well, maybe that doesn't prove anything, but I think we're back in business here with Brandon Ayuk. Finally is the right word.
Tank, why don't you give us a player whose name you're actually willing to say out loud?
I know, like, all I can give you now is, like, Uke until he earns a little bit more, but at least I can say Uke now. I can tell my man Harmon has had that pent up, like, since week 1, dog. I can tell you just been waiting to get that out, but I'm going with someone that's a little bit more fiscally conservative. Like, I know y'all want me to give you somebody that if you pull up in front of the club is like showing up in a Lambo. Like, this dude is like showing up in a minivan with like 2 baby seats in it, and that's Hunter Renfrow. Like, it ain't sexy, but I mean, the dude gets the job done. Like, who leads the Las Vegas Raiders in receptions this year? It's Hunter Renfrow. Who has the most receiving touchdowns on the Raiders? It's Hunter Renfrow. So I know we always understood that, you know, he was going to be a guy that Derek Carr just targets in the middle of the field. But we saw earlier in this year where they were highlighting him running all these fancy routes in the red zone, too. I feel like with Henry Ruggs gone and that Raiders offense is somehow trending towards Renfrow being, you know, a focal point. We really haven't heard too much from Waller since the week 1. It's been Renfrow, and so I think that continues. Renfrow is somebody that you can make sure you plug into your lineup every week to get guaranteed targets, guaranteed catches. He'll probably even touch that end zone every once in a while, too.
Did I feel better about going with Pat Freiermuth in this segment before Ben Roethlisberger hit the COVID list? Yeah, a little bit I did. But let's keep in mind that the line in that game actually only moved by like 1.5 points. It's not like Ben Roethlisberger has been lighting it up necessarily this year. Freiermuth has turned into one of these tight ends that is actually getting a bunch of targets. It'll seem like I'm just chasing touchdowns here, but that's not the case. Yes, he does have 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. He also has 20 targets in his last 3, and that is really difficult to find at the tight end position. We don't get a lot of it. A lot of the big ads this year have been guys like Hunter Henry, who are getting like 3-4 targets a game. So if they don't find the end zone, you just get 2 catches for 19 yards. That is not going to be the case with Freiermuth. I think he's going to be a big part of the game plan this week against Detroit. It is a matchup that he should be able to crush. We got no Chase Claypool. We got no Juju Smith-Schuster, so there are plenty of targets available. I think he's a set it and forget it fantasy option moving forward. Remember, guys, AutoTrader has the largest selection of new and used vehicles. Shop, test drive, and get your car delivered straight to your door. Visit autotrader.com today.
Thank you, Andy. Each week, I chat fantasy with Chargers running back Austin Eckler. You can catch the whole episode of Eckler's Edge every Thursday on Yahoo Fantasy. This week, we played a little pop or drop on a pair of wide receivers. Take a look. All right, let's kick things off with one of, I think, the most underrated wide receivers in the league, Tim Patrick. He found the end zone last week versus Dallas, even with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy on the field. He draws the Eagles. So do you think he pops, or does he have to be dropped?
Yeah, Tim Patrick, he's a big body, which, you know, down in the red zone is going to be an advantage. He just hasn't been getting a lot of love, you know, like he's been getting, you know, a few targets here and there, and he's been making the most out of them. You can see from his yards per carry and obviously getting in the end zone. But I think versus the Eagles, knowing from experience from last week, look, down in the red zone, it's hard to run it in against these guys. And so I think that's going to open up some opportunities for Tim to, you know, get some red zone passes thrown to him. Obviously 6'4", go up, get some fades, do some crossers. So I'm going to say pop.
Last week, Noah Fant wasn't available for the team. He was on the COVID list. He's expected back this week, and Philly is allowing the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So I think ultimately the situation in Denver is that you've got Courtland Sutton, you've got Jerry Jeudy back and healthy now, you've got Tim Patrick, you've got Noah Fant, you've got these 2 great pass-catching running backs, but you don't have a high-volume passing offense. You don't have Teddy Bridgewater clearing 40 pass attempts every week. And so one of these guys, or 2 of these guys even, can be left out in the cold. And because of the depth chart, I think that's going to be Tim Patrick more often than not. So I'm going to give him the drop.
Wow, all right, we shall see. I'm saying my man finds the end zone. He can give himself, 12, 13 points this week, maybe a couple catches. So we'll see. We'll see.
That take is hotter than the bag of Cheetos you ate before the show. Next up is Jets rookie receiver Elijah Moore. This is a player that was highly touted coming out of Ole Miss, but he was a bit buried on the depth chart in New York. Over the past 2 weeks, however, he's been more involved. In fact, he found the end zone twice in Week 9 at Indy. In Week 10, he draws Buffalo's top-rated defense. So are we popping or dropping with the rookie Moore?
The Jets, I'm not really sure what's going on as far as quarterback situation over there, but hey, they're making it work. They're still putting up some yardage. They're still putting up some points. And then Elijah, he's been up and down. He's had a great game last game, obviously, but coming into this week against the Bills, I just don't see it happening. So I'm going to say drop.
I mean, I just feel like Moore adds so much explosiveness
You're going to say pop?
Offense. Hold up, it's a bit of an asterisk. I'm so good after the catch. This kid is got 98th percentile agility. I mean, Jamison Crowder is a fantastic slot receiver, but Moore just adds a little bit of this extra oomph. And what are the Jets doing? If they're not trying to see what they can get out of Moore at this point, I may not play him in Week 10, but I am not dropping him because I think given the schedule and his talent and the way this team is going, he is going to pop more and more, even if it isn't this Sunday.
I agree with down the road. I'm saying this game against the Bills.
All right, keep sending in questions, and we'll get to more flex picks later on. Actually, we're going to get to some flex picks now. What am I even talking about? I don't know. It's chaos. That's the name of the game. Tank, you and I are going to do some flex picks right now. You ready? You ready for that? And obviously the show's going to get more later.
Let's have our own little pop and drop segment.
All right. Okay. Get your hot Cheetos ready, too. Stephanie wants to know. This first question is from Stephanie. Ooh, it's a messy one. She needs 2. Brandon Bolden, Kenyon Drake, and an interesting flex position, Jordan Howard. Hey, there's a name, blast from the past. Or J.D. McKissick in a matchup against the Buccaneers. You're picking 2. To me, it is between Drake, Howard, and McKissick. I do have Howard and McKissick pretty closely ranked in my ranks, but I am intrigued by Drake's recent performance. So which are you leaning towards?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit that I'm intrigued by Drake, too. I mean, he was pretty, he got a good amount of volume. I think maybe 6 receptions or something like that in that Giants game. But I like Jordan Howard. Sirianni said that he was going to ride the hot hand, and Jordan Howard, man, that dude's been balling since he's been back. And then J.D. McKissick. I mean, you look at this from a standpoint where they're playing Tampa Bay. Game script is likely going to be where they're playing from behind. Antonio Gibson really hasn't been able to play too much battling through that shin, so I think he's heavily involved in the pass game, and so I really like McKissick there. So I'm going with those 2 that you have closely ranked together.
Okay, thank you much. All right, let's get to another one. It's from Brian. Brian needs help because Ben is out for Pittsburgh. Ingram is facing a better Titans defense. Needs some help with a flex play. Deontay Johnson, Mark Ingram, Javonte Williams, or Devonta Smith. Needs 2.5-point PPR. Even with Mason Rudolph under center, I'm still not willing to fade Deontay Johnson in this situation. So I'm leaning towards him. And I do like Ingram and Williams, again, closely ranked, but I think I have Ingram because there's no Melvin Gordon to contend with, a little bit higher than Williams. Which 2 are you liking?
Yeah, I like those 2 as well. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when you're saying that Mark Ingram doesn't have to compete with his carries like Javonte Williams does. And then also, like, when you look at Devonta Smith, he had a really nice game last week, but the only way it seems like that Eagles pass game gets off is if they're playing against another team that's going to challenge them and force them to put points on the board. And I don't really see that out of Denver, so I like Deontay Johnson and Mark Ingram in this one.
So far, we're lockstep. I'm going to let you talk first on this next one. It's from Kilo James. Please help. Need 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and 1 flex. Full point PPR. Emmanuel Sanders, James Robinson, Eli Mitchell, J.D. McKissick, or MVS. Oh, do you like how I'm going to let you talk on this one first?
All right. So we need one of each. So If I'm picking a wide receiver, I'm going with Manny Sanders. I like the Bills in a bounce-back game after getting slapped down there in Jacksonville, so I think they play strong. I think Manny Sanders gets back on track with Josh Allen. If I have to pick one of these running backs, I'm going to probably go with J.D. McKissick. We already talked about him. I like the matchup. I think he's going to be a high-volume player with a lot of catches. And MVS isn't in this one for me, so now it's out of James Robinson against a tough Indy defense coming off a heel injury. Eli Mitchell. I think I'm going to go with the healthy Eli Mitchell in a slightly better matchup going against the Rams. I think one thing Shanahan will try to do is run that ball against the Rams to try to take a little bit of pressure off of Jimmy Garoppolo. That's always the case, so I think I'll go with Mitchell in that spot. Do you agree with me? Are we popping or are we dropping?
We are popping. We are always popping together, Tank. You
Hey.
know, and obviously, we're going to lean towards the healthier running back and the healthier partnership here. Y'all can stay healthy and keep sending in those questions to us now. This time, we'll get to more flex picks later on in the show.
Oh, just an absolute clash of the Titans in this edition of Fantasy Face-Offs. It's me, it's Harmon. We're going to start with a couple of great fantasy quarterbacks, too. Two guys who, over the years, certainly this season, have been terrific. For me, it's going to be Jalen Hurts, but you, Matt, you like Russell Wilson in his return from the injured list.
Yeah, listen, I didn't wait around here just to not play Russell Wilson in a pretty intriguing matchup between him and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we got angry, motivated, maybe Aaron to come in here and put up a nice big game after Jordan Love let the Packers down last week. So, no, I mean, I think Russell Wilson's in a great spot here. I know the Packers defense has started to get better, but DK, Lockett, right there, ready to roll. I think this is a good spot to get Russell Wilson in here, especially, you know, with the Eagles offense kind of changing their philosophy. I could see them in a close, competitive back-and-forth game with Denver here, just really trying to establish that running game, man. I mean, that's been the key for the Eagles of late, and we know that Russell Wilson is still the centerpiece of the Seattle Seahawks offense.
I've got no real complaints about Russell Wilson. He is facing a difficult matchup against Green Bay. The last couple games, they've held Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray to like one touchdown pass combined. So again, challenging matchup. We're in the snow here. It is good to have Russell Wilson back, and realistically, if I've got him on a roster, I'm probably not benching Russell Wilson. But I'm looking at Jalen Hurts, somebody who actually has more top 10 quarterback finishes this year than any other QB in the game. A lot of that was when he was actually throwing the ball, and he hasn't done a lot of that the last 2 weeks. I'll give you that, except that he's a huge part of their running game, right? It's still 133 rushing yards over his last two. So even if they decide to just overcommit to the run, he's probably going to be their leading rusher. That probably means 80, 90 rushing yards. So I'm basically all in on Jalen Hurts. I need him. I've got him everywhere. Need a huge week from him, and I think every week is basically a good spot. I will also say that I never have any idea what to expect from Denver's defense. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Who knows? They just had a great week, so I'm counting on a bad week here. Let's switch to our next one, and we're talking about a couple of running backs here. I will get us started first. This is really close, and I've got these guys back to back in the ranks too. I'm going with A.J. Dillon over J.D. McKissick. I get the case for McKissick. They're facing Tampa Bay. Nobody can actually run against Tampa Bay, so it's going to be a lot of short passes, a lot of screen game to McKissick. I understand it. Dillon, however, man, I'm going to take the back who's just flat out good. He's averaging 4.7 yards per carry on the season. He's got a really good matchup here against Seattle. Seattle's been they've been a generous defense, not just a generous run defense. We've got the snowy conditions, so that's going to be great. And Dillon, 5 of his last 6 games, he's seen double-digit touches. I love that. So the workload basically guaranteed here, and he's catching a few passes too. So for me, this is Dillon. Give us the case for J.D. McKissick.
Man, I've been able to default to the brand basically all show long, getting my feelings all caught up on Cam Newton-led Carolina Panthers teams, Brandon Ayuk, the whole deal. Well, I finally got to go against the brand here. I love a big power back in the snow. I love that, but man, still just questionable overall. The whole workload between him and Aaron Jones there for A.J. Dillon. Love the player A.J. Dillon. I want him to kind of be released, but I think this is the week where J.D. McKissick can really get going. I mean, it's just a perfect matchup for the guy. Nobody tries to run on Tampa. As you mentioned, it's not effective. Teams have just given up on it. I think about the game that like Myles Gaskin had with Jacoby Brissett, where he got 10 receptions, 10 targets. I feel like J.D. McKissick could easily walk into that kind of workload. Still easing Antonio Gibson back in, if they're ever going to ease him all the way back in. I don't know. Washington's a weird team, but I definitely see J.D. McKissic getting a lot of dump-offs in this particular matchup. Just sets up so perfectly as Taylor Heinicke and the boys are trailing points over there.
All right, the people are already chiming in on these debates. Let's see where the vote stands. We're settling this via the most scientific method possible, a Twitter poll.
I guess we're not settling anything.
Man. The folks are absolutely deadlocked over Dillon and McKissic. Again, I get it. Let's see where the quarterbacks stand.
How nice.
There have been a number of voting irregularities here. My team is looking into it. Let's not consider this thing settled just yet. I don't think we can trust that one. That's got to be a faulty poll. We're gonna head to another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we're gonna be talking about trending topics. We'll also take a look at some player props. Please do not go away.
B, I want the real, B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
And we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. While you were gone, Andy Tank and I were keeping an eye on what's trending. Here are some buzzy names this morning. We've got Mark Ingram. We've already talked about him. Michael Carter. I'm sure we'll discuss him more later in the show. And, oh, hey, here's a name we haven't brought up yet. Michael Gallup. Andy, Michael Gallup is active today. First time since week 1 coming off that calf injury. But here's the catch. Cedric Wilson, the team's wide receiver 3, who has been the team's wide receiver 3, I should say, since Gallup's been on IR and absent, is also active, dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury. What do you make for Gallup this week? I mean, Cedric Wilson's been averaging like 3.5 targets per game, but obviously they're not the same player. So what are your expectations for Gallup today?
Yeah, Wilson's been really fun too. They'll let him throw. He's been a really nice fill-in. I think Gallup is just a terrific player. Now I'm usually hesitant to start guys like this when they're coming back from a protracted absence, and that's what we have with Gallup. But he's been practicing for a while, so I expect him to be fully back in the swing and to play his normal complement of snaps. I'm pretty optimistic here. If you're in a deeper league and you need somebody who can work their way into that wide receiver 3 mix, I think that's Gallup. I think he's a pretty strong play right off the bat.
Tank, what about you? Because obviously this matchup between the Falcons and the Cowboys is one of the highest projected point totals for the week. Right now, BetMGM has the over-under at 55, but we also saw Dallas really surprise in a bad way last week. So do you think there are enough targets to go around here, and are you buying into that over-under for Gallup and all of the other pass-catching weapons at Dak's disposal?
I hope so. I mean, I tell you, I'm actually I got Michael Gallup in one of my lineups, and I have Brandon Cooks, who's on the bye. I have T. Higgins, who's on the bye. And so my whole battle has been, am I going to start Michael Gallup or am I going to start another wide receiver in this matchup, Russell Gage? We've shown that Matt Ryan likes to spread the ball around, and Dak has a lot of weapons to spread the ball around too. So my logic is like, I really don't know which guy I'm going to choose. Like Andy said, I have seen that Gallup has been practicing the past couple of weeks, so I know he's in rhythm with Dak in that offense. So I'm going to go with the better offense and go with Michael Gallup and hope that he delivers, since I've been holding on to him since damn August.
I've been doing the same thing, but I love that you mentioned Russell Gage. I feel like he should be trending as well, because even though that bagel in week 8 was a little bit tilting, he still should get peppered quite a bit. Led the team, I believe, in targets, the Falcons, last week. So let's move on, though. Y'all can catch up to Gallup and Gage and all of these other players in a minute. I talked about the over-under, so let's get back into the sports book. Minty and Matt are checking in on the latest player props over there. Guys, what do you have?
All right, yeah, let's jump into our player props. You know I love doing this every single week with you, Minty. It's an exciting group of games this week. Why don't you hit us with your first one?
All right, first one is going to be Tony Pollard. His rushing attempts set at 9.5. I'm going to go over here. Pollard has had some low production the last couple of games, but I expect a bounce back from Dallas today. Atlanta is awful defensively, especially on the ground. Dak is going to share that ball between Zeke and Tony Pollard, and all sorts of Dallas players are going to hit their player prop overs today. So I like this over.
I like that a lot. Bounce back is also the theme of not my first, but also my second player prop today. First one up, Mike Williams. Give me the over on 62.5 yards. I know it's been mega tilting with Mike Williams of late. He does not have that same production that he did early in the season. They've really changed his role up from like a 10 average depth of target to up near 14. Sort of that old boom bust Mike Williams role. You kind of have to tell yourself a story whether that's just his injury or if they really have changed his role. As long as he's healthy, though, even if they're going to use him in this deep threat fashion, I think that's not a bad thing going against the Minnesota Vikings secondary that is nothing like the last two units, New England and Baltimore, that really shut down this Chargers offense. Obviously, they had that pillow-soft matchup against the Eagles last week, which was all just Keenan Allen over the middle. I think this is much more of a Mike Williams week against a decimated defense over there, especially in the cornerback room. I think Mike Williams gets back on track for your fantasy lineups this morning for sure.
Oh yeah, love that one. My next one is going to be Patrick Mahomes to throw an interception, and that's only -110. Mahomes has 10 interceptions so far this season, and although the Raiders defense has only recorded 4 picks, Patrick has thrown an interception in each of his 2 games against the Las Vegas Raiders going back to last season. So I'm expecting a big game. Vegas's defense to step it up this week. So I like him to throw a pick. All I just need is 1.
All you need is 1. He's been very giving in that category of late. We're going to talk more about Patrick Mahomes in our next over-under segment on the show here, so we'll talk more about that. But Kyle Pitts is the guy we got to talk about right now. Look, I know he's been a little slower the last 2 weeks, but that is all matchup driven. You know, right now, no tight end is taking more snaps out wide than Kyle Pitts. He also leads tight ends in targets of 10+ air yards. He's basically being used as an actual wide receiver. And the last 2 teams that he's faced, Carolina, Stephon Gilmore went right up to the coaching staff himself. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and guard that guy. I got this. Don't worry about it. I've been doing this a long time in New England. Don't worry. I'm going to go guard that guy. Marshawn Lattimore is a really good shadow corner on the outside for the Saints too. Also, their just defense is structured down the middle to take away tight ends. This matchup in a high-scoring game against the Dallas Cowboys, they don't got any defenders that can do that type of stuff with Kyle Pitts. So I expect him to get back on track. Give me the over on 71.5 receiving yards, as he is still the centerpiece, the focal point for that Atlanta Falcons offense.
Yep, absolutely. I love that one. As you're right, Dallas's defense hasn't been present lately, and they're they're bottom 10 in passing yards per game. So I really like that one to go over. I'm with you, Matt.
Yeah, Trevon Diggs, really good guy, getting interceptions, getting some points for the Dallas Cowboys, but also can give them up as well. So really like that one. Like all 4 of our picks here this week, Minty, and I really like spending every single Sunday in the Yahoo Sportsbook live show. Make sure you come back. Watch us right here. Minty and I will be going over the games that are happening live. We'll also go over the games that are going on later. And, of course, my player prop segment, which has been a little slower of the last couple weeks. So I'm really hoping to get back on track. You're still a winning record, and that's all that matters. Make sure you come back here, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, right here on Yahoo Sports to catch it live.
You guys teased it. We're talking Patrick Mahomes in this over-under. By the way, shout out to Minty for finding a way to take the under in an over-under in which she wasn't even involved. That's incredible. The number that we're setting here is 23.9 fantasy points, standard fantasy points for Patrick Mahomes. This used to be a good half for Patrick Mahomes, right? Obviously, over the last 3 weeks, he can barely crack 15 fantasy points. I just gotta think it changes against the Raiders on Sunday night. He's still got Travis Kelce. He's still got Tyreek Hill. The passing volume is still there. He's still throwing the ball 38, 40 times a game. And he's still Patrick Mahomes. He's not like washed at age 26. I have confidence in him. Against the Raiders last year, both games, it was 340 plus passing yards and a couple of touchdowns. I think he can do that again here. Call me crazy. I think Patrick Mahomes can again be good someday. I think it happens tonight. Matt, do you agree?
Well, I guess I'll miss the invite to his retirement party from you, Andy. That is nice. I am also going over here. You know, look, everybody out there is just cover two. The two deep safeties too high. That's taken away Patrick Mahomes and even Josh Allen in Buffalo. Well, you know who does not run that type of defense is the Las Vegas Raiders. They're that old Gus Bradley Seahawks style defense. They do a little bit more than that, but nevertheless, I think this is a unit where Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to be forced to be patient, doesn't have to be forced to do the little dink and dunk stuff that teams have been begging him to do of late. I think Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, these guys are able to hit a couple big plays for the first time in forever on this defense. I think it's a pretty good matchup just schematically for Patrick Mahomes and the guys to hit a couple big plays here.
All right, Tank, can we get a sweep on this one?
Hell no, because my girl Minty is in Vegas, so I'm going with the Minty down under. I mean, like, we've been waiting for this offense to bounce back, but they still riding on two flats. Like, my man Patrick Mahomes, like I've already talked about how he's been having trouble going through his route progressions. What's something else that could give him trouble with those route progressions? Max Crosby. Like, that dude has been a monster. If you look at it, too, the Las Vegas Raiders give up the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. So you look at a combination of pressure, that offense being out of sync. I feel like Patrick Mahomes can have a decent game, but I feel like the pressure that the Las Vegas Raiders can provide will make him come in slightly under this number. So I say under for my homie Minty. Shout out to Vegas. Marshawn Lynch.
All right, we got one more over-under coming up later in the show. One more chance for a sweep, but right now let's send it to Liz for a few sleepers.
All right, thanks, Andy. Let's indeed get to some sleepers who could do some damage for fantasy managers in Week 10. James Conner is the current king of the Cardinals' backfield, but don't sleep on Eno Benjamin, y'all. The Arizona State product was used as a receiver in college. He logged 77 catches over his last 2 seasons as a Sun Devil, and he is explosive. His 87th percentile burst showed up in the 21-yard touchdown he scored last Sunday. I think he takes over Chase Edmonds' role in this offense and should flirt with, let's say, 15 touches versus the Panthers. That makes him an interesting flex in PPR-friendly formats. If you're looking for another flex, how about Deontay Harris? I know, he's on the Saints, but listen, since returning from a hamstring injury 2 weeks ago, Harris has been second in receiver snaps. He's drawn at least 7 looks and logged 3 red zone opportunities. He hasn't been able to, admittedly, ROI on those chances for big-time gains, but he could do some fantasy damage at Tennessee, especially with Alvin Kamara out. The Titans have given up the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers and are top 12 in receptions over 20 yards allowed. I've got Harris ranked ahead of Marquez Callaway and inside my top 40 players at the position this week. But we have you and your lineups ranked ahead of everything else. So let's turn our attention back to the people and see what's cooking in the chat. Matt?
Andy, I got so excited that you were joining me for this segment when we talked pre-show, when you're like, oh man, I don't want to look at any more chat rooms. I don't want to deal with all of these strange running back plays on the slate. Well, too bad, buddy, because you got to check the chat with me here. Let's jump into the YouTube group here. We've got a really interesting question, and Whiskey Burger did the right thing, sent in a ton of good emojis. What am I talking about? We got a whiskey glass here. We got a burger, of course, but we also got the siren and the fire. You know I love that. All right, need one in a PPR format. That's kind of a key point here, Andy. We got Jordan Howard. Woof. Zach Moss. Ugh. A.J. Dillon, talked about him earlier, or Antonio Gibson. I mean, give me a break here. Which one of these 4 dusty backs do you want to pick?
It's so sad that I can't just pick Antonio Gibson here, and that this has even become a question. But obviously, he's fighting through injury. Like, credit to him, but it's a brutal matchup this week against Tampa. Just 2 weeks ago, Jared Patterson actually outcarried him, so we don't even know what Gibson's role is going to be. I'm going to start A.J. Dillon here. Again, he's the hyper-talented big back in a snow game. We love that. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing to start him and watch him. You like that. He's also been catching a few passes lately, too, so he's not a total zero in PPR. I'm going to go Dillon here. I think he's got a really good chance for at least 1 touchdown in this thing.
I'm with you on that. A.J. Dillon, I think, stands out in the crowd of guys that we got in that question. Next one here, we've got one from Brendan in the YouTube chat. Just a pretty standard set of football emojis. Not bad. We like it. Dawson Knox or Dallas Goedert. Andy, I talked about this earlier that, I typically want to give guys a bit of a break the week they're coming back, just kind of wait and see what their usage looks like in that first game back. But I kind of feel like I'm pretty tempted by Dawson Knox in this matchup with Denver today. What say you?
Yeah, I fully agree. Dawson Knox had emerged as somebody that I was consistently ranking inside the top 5 when he suffered that injury. And I like Goddard, and he's in a decent position. But as we mentioned not that long ago, Philadelphia over their last couple games, they're not even trying to throw the ball. They're just trying to run it down your throat. So, like, what are the real chances that Dallas Goedert sees 6-7 targets, a sort of workload like that? Knox, to me, is just, when healthy, a sort of set it and forget it player.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the market share looks pretty decent for Dallas Goedert. It's kind of a bummer, though, that as soon as Zach Ertz gets out of there, they're like, yeah, let's run the ball more. Let's establish that thing. All right, Alex P., I can't ignore you any longer in the YouTube chat. You are spamming the hell out of this thing with the wolf emoji, a fox emoji. We got a tiger, 1 lion in there. It's a gross question, though, Andy, but I mean, my guy is being persistent. Return yards count in this question. It's half PPR. Which Saints wide receiver, that's right, I said Saints wide receiver between Harris and Callaway do you like more? I mean, the real answer to the question is just no, but between the two, which one are you picking?
Yeah, listen, there's got to be a pivot here, but Liz made obviously some good points on Harris, and Harris last couple games we're talking like 15 targets. Granted, they're Trevor Siemian targets. It's not the most ripe situation that we can find. But Harris, I think, is going to see probably more targets than Callaway in this one. Intriguing player. Again, give me a third option here. I desperately want a third option here, but if I can't find one, it's going to be Harris for me.
Yeah, please, Alex, there has to be something on your waiver wire better than that, but I agree with Andy. If you're chasing big plays here, I think you got to go with Harris, who could make a lot out of a little there. But yeah, after that, we got to step aside here on Fantasy Football Life. We got to take a little break after that whole Saints wide receiver situation. When we come back, we're actually going to talk about a wide receiver who could have gone to the Saints, but he did not. It's Odell Beckham Jr. in our last over-under, set to make his first appearance with the LA Rams. We're going to break it down right when we come back.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon.
Yeah,
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
All right, Odell Beckham back in our lives, back in the mainstream focus with the LA Rams. And I mean, you could maybe be conservative with this whole thing up until Robert Woods. Like, what a turn of fate. Just ACL goes the day after the signing. Unbelievable. We are going to set the line at Odell Beckham's Rams debut on Monday night at 5.5 catches. Minty, Liz, you know I think that life is too short to take unders. Life is not good when you're manifesting that negative under energy. But I mean, like 5 would have been my number. 5 was a perfect number, so I am going to go under on this one. I hate it. I don't like it. I think Van Jefferson can have the bigger game. I will probably look stupid if they, start funneling little early targets to Odell to get him in rhythm, to make him happy, the whole thing. But, it's his first week. It's a good matchup, but I guess I'll go under here, but I hate it. Minty, tell me why I'm right on this, though, because I know you will.
Oh, Matt, you are right, and don't hate it. Don't hate yourself for doing it. I mean, the guy has only recorded 5 catches the guy has not exceeded 5 catches all this season at all. Last year, he hit the over in most of his games played. However, you're right, it's his first start with the Rams. Stafford has other reliable receivers to throw to. So I think we're going to be pretty underwhelmed with how much we see OBJ on the field today. Got to go under.
Liz, I definitely will take the over on mentions of Odell Beckham's name on Monday Night Football, but are you taking the under or over on the catches total we got here?
So interestingly, I wrote in my notes, if the line were 4.5, I'd take the over because I'm expecting around 5 catches, which seems to be in line with you, right? Yeah. It's just, it is a lot to ask him to make it, or heck, 6 targets, but 6 completions, even without Bobby Trees in the mix, is asking an awful lot. I know that San Francisco is letting third receivers get loose per DVOA, but I think that's more about production versus number of catches. I, too, am going to take the under, and I, too, have Van Jefferson inside my top 35.
Ugh, an under sweep that I'm a part of. That just absolutely disgusts me. Let's bring the positivity, the joy back to the show, and we know that our man Tank Williams and Baller on a budget can do that.
What it do, baby? It's your boy T Money with my week. Oh, we already in week 10? Ballers on a budget. Now, we starting off with quarterback Matt Ryan at Dallas, $25. Now, my man Matty Ice has been lighting it up lately. Like, Dallas defense gives up the 14 most fantasy points to quarterbacks. We saw what Teddy B did to him last week. And my man Matty Ice threw for 2 tubs and ran for 1 last week. Holla at your boy. Now, I'm just hoping that once I hop back on the wagon, he don't hit me with twice the ice. But I feel like this is a really good matchup for the Falcons, and he should flourish today. Now at running back, I'm going with James Conner, $21 against the Carolina Panthers. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, whoever does the pricing for Yahoo is pricing this dude like he's dust. Like, this dude has 6 tubs in the last 3 games in a smash spot against Carolina, and this dude is only $21. Like, honestly, and we don't have any Chase Edmonds. Like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe somebody could tell me. Maybe I'm a little off. Like, I understand that we got Dearness Johnson and all these other guys that are super cheap, but this dude has proven that he could throw up mad tubs in every game situation, and he's only $21. Holla at your boy James Conner. 2 first names. At wide receiver, Alan Lazard, he's only $12. He's coming off the COVID list with his boy A-Rod, so you know what they're going to do. A-Rod's salty because everybody was talking noise about him in the media the past couple of weeks. Look for these virus boys to get up together, ball out against Russell. I feel like he's going to be the second favorite red zone target since my man Tunyon is out right now. So look for Lazard to ball out at a really, really, really cheap price at $12. Now, at tight end, I'm going with a pick that may not seem that sexy, Dan Arnold, $14. But look, my man Trevor Lawrence has been targeting the hell out of this dude. Like, why did I put that in yellow? He had 17 targets over the last 2 weeks. 17 targets, and the Jags and the Indianapolis Colts give up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. So I really like this potential game script where Jags gonna be playing from behind. Trevor Lawrence gonna have to throw it a lot. We already see who he likes to throw it to. If he sneaks in the end zone, that makes it that much better. So remember, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your wallet or your pocket if you do not get these boys into your lineup. Now, producer Dan, we're gonna try something new this week. Go ahead and throw up the man with the best hairs lineup, Matt Harmon, because he was the one who won last week. He's in 3rd now. I'm closer to Mincy, which I don't mind. But look at this. All right, so we got Matt Harmon. He won because of Uke. That's all I can say right now. Uke. Like, if he balls out again, I will say the full name. But right now, he moved himself into the middle of the pack because of Uke.
How dare you?
Look who's leading this thing. I feel like you're burying the lead.
Let's not talk about that, Andy. What are you doing?
Hey, but look how close we are, though. 1069 to 959. That's really close now. Everybody in the thick of it.
Everybody's in the thick of it. And y'all, everyone watching, can still get in on the action in Daily Fantasy this morning on Yahoo. Our big $1 million baller contest is open, and you can win cash prizes. First place takes home $100,000 plus an entry into the first ever Yahoo Fantasy Football Championship Live Finals. Visit the Daily Fantasy Football lobby and join in on the fun. Welcome to FFL's Community Corner Week 10 edition. This week we are joined by Lauren Carpenter, aka on Twitter at Stepmom Lauren. Lauren is a multi-hyphenate talent and contributor for a number of outlets, including Fantasy Pros and NBC Sports Edge. She writes a weekly waiver wire column and hosts a picks and betting show for the Mayo Media Network. Lauren, welcome to FFL.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Liz. This is a blast already. I'm excited because you make me sound important and special.
Well, you are important and special to me and hopefully to our viewers because you're going to give them some awesome analysis. Let's start with the first question I have for you. I want to know which matchup in particular you're mining for the most fantasy gold. And I don't care if it's expected or under the radar. Just give me the good stuff.
Okay, I've got 2 here, and one of them is going to be the expected one, right? It's going to be the Vikings at the Chargers, and I am very excited about this. Not only do we love Justin Herbert, but on the other side of the ball here are the Vikings. Now, the Vikings, I think that you should start Tyler Conklin because the Chargers are actually, I believe, 6th worst when it comes to the tight end position. And Tyler Conklin has really emerged in this offense. He has carved out a role for himself, which seems almost unbelievable when you have Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and even KJ Osborne. Tyler Conklin is very interesting, but I also do have one when it comes to maybe not so pretty on paper, but there's a little piece of gold here that you can use in DFS or as a sleeper.
Give me the glitter. Give me the gold dust.
I know. All that glitters is gold, my dear, and I'm very excited about this one. And this is going to be strange because it's the Saints and the Titans. When it comes to pass-catching running backs, in the last 2 weeks, which we like season-long stats, but we also like recent stats too, they are tied for 3rd worst when it comes to most yards allowed to pass-catching running backs. They have allowed the 2nd most touchdowns, so I think Jeremy McNichols actually has an opportunity here. And the other half of that is that the Saints are terrible against quarterbacks. And again, I'm looking at the last 2 weeks, not necessarily season long here. So Ryan Tannehill can use his legs. He scored 7 rushing touchdowns last year. So I'm very excited about Ryan Tannehill. When on paper, this doesn't look like it'd be very good. I really like it for week 10.
Well, the Titans are certainly on a winning streak, riding high off of that upset against the Rams. Let's move to the second question. I want to know, who is your favorite start of the week?
Aside from Jeremy McNichols, who I apparently am now obsessed with because I've literally talked about him over and over and over again. But my other one is going to be the running back position for the Green Bay Packers. And obviously we're starting Aaron Jones. So I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about A.J. Dillon. When we're talking about the Seahawks, they've allowed the third most points to the position. Now, what I really, really like about A.J. Dillon is not only has he really started to carve out a role for himself, he's been doing very well, but he has a completely different identity and a style of run than Aaron Jones. Now, Aaron Rodgers has not been able to practice all week. That doesn't really matter because it's Aaron Rodgers, but I find it difficult for them to really move away from the success that they've had with A.J. Dillon simply because Aaron Rodgers is back. And again, the Seahawks are incredibly weak against running backs, so I really like A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur definitely likes to use a committee in his backfield. Last season, when Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones were both healthy, there was a 60-40 snap share between the two of them. So I think A.J. Dillon is a really good call. Tell all of our viewers where they can find your work one more time and how they can follow you on social media.
Absolutely. You guys can find all of my work on my website. It's stepmomlauren.com, and you can follow me on social media, stepmomlauren. Very consistent, very easy. Come follow me, come hang out, ask me questions. This is one of the reasons I love this industry so much, is I get to make such good friends. And this is why I love to do what I do, is looking into this kind of data and sharing it with all of you.
All right. Thank you so much, Lauren. Share, connect, follow. All right, let's check back to Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. This first one is from Caroline, and Caroline asks, Javonte Williams, Tony Pollard, or Jordan Howard? We've talked about how closely some of these players are ranked. Andy, which of the three running backs are you preferring?
Yeah, I do have them actually grouped together pretty tight, but I'm going to go Javonte Williams here. It's been super impressive, obviously, basically taking 50% of the snaps and 50% of the touches for Denver. It's going to remain a committee, right? Like, I don't think he's going to take over as everybody hopes he will, but he's been tremendous. He's been among the missed tackle leaders so far in the year. I think the run is always going to be in play for Denver this week against Philly, so give me slight lean to Javonte.
All right, and Philly, the most runned-on defense in the league, so I like that pick as well. Matt, let's go to this next one for you. It has two of your pet players. It's from Ryan. He's in a full PPR league. Hunter Renfrow with those baby seats in the back of his Kia. Darrell Williams against the Raiders. Brandon Cook, or Van Jefferson.
Guy couldn't even spell Brandon Ayuk's name right. I mean, what are we doing here? Tank won't say the full name. Unbelievable, the disrespect. I get it. But come on, let's live in the current reality. I don't know. I like all of these options, really. This is a good quality question for once. You know, I think we tend to get a lot of goofballs in these play calling questions, but this one is good. Four good options here. I think every single player here is in play this week. I like every single one, but I really think Brandon Ayuk is the play here. Again, the volume's there, the playing time is there. This should be a relatively high-scoring game. And when you think about how the LA Rams might defend the San Francisco 49ers, I mean, Jalen Ramsey primarily playing as that slot corner. Ayuk is mostly going to run his routes on the outside. I feel like Jalen Ramsey will be a big part of the game plan in order to come up and tackle Deebo Samuel before he can get these crazy yards after the catch plays. So I feel like Ayuk is in a pretty good spot in this matchup.
All right, my producer's telling me to go on in my ear, but Tank, I got to ask you, after listening to Matt's manifesto there, do you also agree with his pick that the Whisper Twins is the option over Darrell Williams or Hunter Renfrow or Mini Van Jefferson?
Honestly, I just want to channel my Stephen A. Smith. Like, I actually like Brandon Ayuk as a guy and a player. I hope he balls, but when he doesn't and I get to come back on Sunday and troll Harmon the entire show, like, that's what I live for. So I'm just looking forward to saying less of Ayuk. I think if he doesn't ball out this coming week, it's just going to be Ayuk or...
Oh, God. I'm going to be sick next Sunday.
I love it. All right. Enough of these two. Minty, please, let's. I haven't heard from you in a minute, and I miss you. And so does the Ox, apparently, because this question from the Ox is about a survival pool pick. Just the team surefire to win the game today. Who would you choose?
Ooh, this one's tough because this week I feel like it can go any which way, especially seeing so many underdogs win last week. But I think my surefire survivor pool picks, just to win straight up, Colts and Bucks.
Okay. All right. Taco Tuesday. Let's get to the next one. As Taco Tuesday has a tough decision because it's not Tuesday. Should this human, assumedly, start Dearness Johnson or CeeDee Lamb in the flex? Andy, how about you?
Yes.
Wow. Well, there's at least one goofball here, and the other guy is CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I'm not going to bench CeeDee Lamb, really. Like, I can make a case for Dearness Johnson as a really strong play this week. I think he's an RB2. I think he was great against Denver, right? And Cleveland's offensive line was great, but I am not sending CeeDee Lamb to the bench for any scrubby waiver wire running back. No, thank you.
Okay, Cameron, this question is written by, I don't think Cameron's a goofball for asking this. Tank, maybe you disagree. Devonta Smith or Cole Beasley as Cameron's wide receiver 3 this week?
Wow, this is actually pretty interesting because I don't know if I like the game script that I see happening in Denver with Philly. And then Cole Beasley, I mean, this should be like a little smackdown with the Buffalo Bills coming off that whooping to Jacksonville. I think they go in and they just whoop the Jets, and so I don't really know how much they're going to throw it around. But Cole Beasley has been a target monster as of late. That offense is the better offense out of the two. I mean, I think Philly wants to run the ball when they can, so I'm actually going to go with Cole Beasley over the #1 pick, Devonta Smith. Sorry, Rev.
I think it's volume is always king. It's a very sound choice that you're making. Hopefully it helped all of these viewers out. We have to take another break here on Fantasy Football Live, but here's a real question. Are you tired of finishing in the middle of the pack? Well, you can start winning with Yahoo Fantasy Plus and get the edge you need to absolutely dominate your league. Get access to exclusive tools like a research assistant, trade hub, expert rankings, and more. Go ahead and start your free 7-day trial today.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. Best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
We are back here on Fantasy Football Live. 7 games kicking off at the top of the hour. Let's recap the top actives and inactives for this morning. Patriots running back Ramondre Stevenson has been cleared from concussion protocol and will start against Cleveland. Bucks wideout Chris Godwin logged just one practice this week, but he will go today in the nation's capital against the football team. James Robinson is active today for the Jags. It looks like his heel injury won't keep him out against Indy. Kyler Murray is still listed as questionable for this afternoon's matchup. DeAndre Hopkins not expected to play. All right, Minty, it's time for you and I to debate your best bets for this week. What do you got?
All right, let's start with my best bet on the board, the Seattle Seahawks +3 over the Green Bay Packers. Now, I love betting on the Seahawks. Oh, don't shake your head. I love betting on the Seahawks as underdogs here, and I know it's super iffy with Russ coming off of that finger injury, playing in snowy Green Bay, and playing against a more efficient team here, but Russ and that offense can pick apart this Green Bay defense. I think this game will be decided by a field goal. I already bet the Seahawks +3.5. I would still bet it at +3, but no lower than that. Thoughts, Liz?
I mean, first of all, can we talk about how this is the pilot episode of the Trading Spaces reboot launching in the spring of 2022? My goodness, the jersey swap after this game is going to be very interesting. We have two pretty evenly matched teams. Seattle is ranked number 12 in total DVOA. Green Bay number 15. With Russell Wilson under center for a full 4 quarters, the Seahawks have only lost by more than 3 points one time. So I am with you. I do think even in the snow that the Seahawks with Russell back are able to keep this close, but I agree. I think it's going to be a field goal. Wouldn't do anything less than that, however.
Same. All right, for Sunday night, we have an AFC West showdown between the Chiefs and my Las Vegas Raiders. I like the Raiders to win straight up here. +115, +120, I'm seeing it at now. The Chiefs are not good at football this season, and they are especially not good at covering the spread. They play extremely close games. The Raiders play well under pressure, play pretty well at home, and they're playing their best ball yet, so I like them to win straight up, but take the points just for, safety reasons.
Oh, I love it, Minty. I absolutely love it. You hit the nail on the head. The Raiders are getting pressure per NFL's next-gen stats. The Raiders have gotten pressure on 30% of their snaps in every game this season. Tank talked earlier about Max Crosby and what a difference maker he has been. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes has a pressured completion percentage of 40%. For reference, that's the QB 22. KC is only favored by 2.5 in this one. I like the Raiders in the theoretical upset.
I love it. Love it. All right, to end things with Monday Night Football, we got the NFC West showdown. As the Rams take on the Niners, I actually like the Niners +3.5 here. I already bet at +4. I would take 3.5, no lower. Frankly, I'm just liking this pick because the public is going to be all over the Rams, especially with the OBJ hype. But the Niners are getting healthier. They're 3-1 against the spread against the Rams. They're also 4-0 straight up against the Rams their last 4 matchups. And they're catching 3.5 points at home. I think it's a steal. San Francisco needs to keep LA's offense off the field as much as possible, and that will be the only way they'll be able to keep this game close. So give me the home underdog.
I love that you mentioned the public here. I think that is what's pushing things. You've seen the line adjust, as you mentioned. Listen, I get that San Francisco can't win at home. That has been more than evident. But also this weird Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay rivalry. And when you look at these two matchups in particular, is pretty strong. So I agree with you. I think the 49ers can cover here.
Ooh, I love that we agree on almost all of these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. All right. There's still time to adjust those lineups. So let's find out who's going to be off their game this week. Matt, why don't you take down the positivity?
Yeah, let's instill that weekly panic just 13 minutes before kickoff. Let's bring that negativity to some of the guys that people think, oh, you can just count on this player. 50% started across Yahoo leagues. Not so fast. Andy Behrens, Kyle Pitts dropped the pass like 2 seconds after the show wrapped up because of the bad juju you put on him last week. Hit us with your pick this week.
Yeah, it's gonna be DJ Moore. I'm starting him in a couple of leagues. The people are starting him. An overwhelming majority of folks who actually have him on rosters are still starting him. You have to, because the targets keep coming. He hasn't seen fewer than 7 targets in any game so far this season. He's a great player, wonderful player. He is, this week, tied to PJ Walker, and I'm not super excited about that. Now, Walker gave us some fun moments in the preseason, but he also completed just 41% of his throws in the preseason. In his NFL career, he's completing 49.3% of his attempts. That's not great. This is just not a good setup for Moore. I'm hoping that the second Cam Newton era in Carolina can help boost DJ Moore's fantasy floor. But man, if I had better options this week, I would veer away from him.
Yeah, Cam had some interesting like Simba Mufasa type thing comparison with him and DJ Moore. It's great to have Cam back in Carolina, just great. But we're gonna have to wait until next week to see those guys take down the Great Plains or whatever the hell the analogy was. Anyway, Tank, who else are we panicking about heading into Week 10?
Man, I think it's Michael Carter with Buffalo coming into town, because I understand it's easy to get wrapped into the glitz of New York City. Like, we got the great white hype going on. Mike White saying that he should have been the #1 pick. And I can understand why people are like enamored with my man Michael Carter. Like, the dude has been balling in the run and pass game until he ran up against Indianapolis last week. And I feel like he's going to run up into a larger brick wall against Buffalo. I kind of talked about it earlier in the show. Buffalo coming off a tough loss to Jacksonville. This is one of those get-right games where Buffalo comes into town against a division rival and puts the smack down. And so I feel like with Buffalo being the stingiest team against running backs in regards to fantasy points, they're going to put that beat down on the Jets, and therefore Michael Carter's stats are going to be beat down in the process.
Hard to argue with that. I'm sure Zach Wilson, all the positivity is like, yeah, that'd be great, though, if Mike White had a pretty bad game against the Bills and actually can get my starting job back. So we'll keep our eye on that matchup. One guy I'm a little worried about coming in, actually a lot of bit worried about right now, is Courtland Sutton. Coming into the week before Jerry Jeudy returned, Courtland Sutton led the entire NFL in air yards. I mean, he was one of the most productive receivers out there. But my worry with this Denver pass catching group coming into the season was that there are way too many quality players on this offense for a Teddy Bridgewater-led quarterback core to support every week in fantasy football. That has been the case since Jerry Jeudy returned. 6 total targets over the last 2 games for Courtland Sutton. Remember, this is a guy that was leading the NFL in air yards. Now he's getting 3 targets per game. I don't know that that's going to hold up the rest of the season, but at least in this matchup, like we talked about 100 years ago at the beginning of the show, you know, against a pillow-soft Eagles defense that allows like the highest completion percentage, the lowest ADOT, that looks like a Jerry Jeudy game to me, and not Courtland Sutton dealing outside coverage with Darius Slay, who we saw really get over on Mike Williams last week. So I would put Courtland Sutton on your bench, and you've only got 9 minutes left to do it. So while you're going ahead and making all those little roster tweaks, we're going to hear from the people who had some things to get off their chest about the worst fantasy narratives in the survival kits this week. What is the worst narrative out there surrounding fantasy football? What really grinds your gears? Let's get right into it, because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. All right, first one up. I'm not going to read all that, okay? That is a lot of words. You really didn't need to max out the tweet here, Commish Show. But I'm totally with you on this point. It is so annoying out there listening to people like, they've got to get Javonte Williams the ball. He's so explosive, and he could be a league winner in fantasy football. Well, it's not going to happen, okay? So why don't you just resign yourself to that fact, okay? Javonte Williams can be a stone-cold baller. As a matter of fact, I think he's going to be really good whenever he does get a huge workload. But this might be fantasy football, but we're still dealing with real-life NFL teams. We're still living in reality. And the real-life Broncos have no incentive to go to real-life Melvin Gordon, who's been grinding all year, and tell him, yeah, buddy, I know you've been playing pretty well, but, like, we got to pluck you off the field so fantasy football players can be access to Javonte Williams' upside. Give me a break, okay? You embarrass yourself. Just because it's fantasy football doesn't mean there's not some real-life stuff going on here. Speaking of embarrassing yourself, yes, I know that oftentimes when I am out there tweeting #RevengeGame, I might be embarrassing myself a little bit. But look, it's not a serious piece of analysis, okay? I am well aware, Donovan, that just because a player is playing his former team or old coach or whatever doesn't mean that all of a sudden his motivation is going to rise really high and his fantasy scoring is going to rise really high. It's just a joke, okay? Don't take things so seriously. There's enough bad stuff going on out there. There's enough bad stuff on the internet that sometimes it's okay to just be weird and have fun online, all right? All right, just if you don't like it, you know what you can do? You can just keep on scrolling. Let it go. All right, now onto this tweet. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Drake. Like, it's enough already with the whole Drake thing, but I love his reaction in this GIF. Like, ooh, real fantasy football doesn't include kickers and defenses. I am so sick and tired of these fantasy football snobs up there on Mount Pius judging the regular people or whatever, the casuals, as they say, like as if only real fantasy football is played as super flex leagues. Real fantasy football players don't use kickers or defenses. Look, ridiculous. Absolutely disgusting behavior, as a matter of fact. Listen, do I like to play in leagues that are just fat with extra flexes, deep bench spots, the whole thing? Yes, I do. Do I want to play with kickers and defenses? Not necessarily. But if you do, go ahead, man. Do whatever you love, all right? It's enough already with these people that are just so judgmental as if they have figured out the only way to play this hobby. Do what you love, but let other people live their lives as well, and let's all just enjoy this hobby together. I mean, we're a community. Give me a break with these disgusting inside job attackers that we have here.
We are just moments away from kickoff, so let's get to as many social media questions as we can. And let's start with this first one from Mike. I love this question from Mike. Tyler Johnson, yes. Jamal Agnew, all right. Zach Ertz, okay. Or Donovan Peoples-Jones. I cannot go to anybody but Andy when there is a question featuring 2 Big Ten products. So, come on, Andy, get there with me. Who are you picking out of this list of, like, clearly, by the way, Mike is banged, man. Injuries is all messing with him, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is fun. Hopefully this is just an extremely deep league, multiple flex spots. It's exactly what Harmon was just describing. I'm gonna go Tyler Johnson here. Good player. He's dinged a little bit because Godwin is gonna play this week, but he's got that foot injury. It's such a good matchup against Washington. Washington right now ranks dead last against the pass in the NFL. So this is just a really good spot. Johnson, a very good player who obviously landed, in terms of fantasy production, landed in a tough environment because he's behind all these legendary receivers in Tampa. But this week, he's going to get plenty of targets. He's coming off a game with like a half a dozen targets. I think he's in line for that again. And against Washington, that can mean big things.
Big things, Big Ten, yes, Minnesota. All right, next question is from Natasha. Tank, gonna come to you because it's a question about defenses. And, for those of you who didn't know, Tank did play professionally in the NFL on defense. Carolina's D at Arizona, obviously questions about who's going to start at quarterback in that matchup for the Cardinals, or the Patriots D versus Cleveland, who's dealing with a bit of a COVID outbreak. Which of these 2 defenses would you prefer?
Man, I'm going with the Patriots. I mean, for me, this is pretty easy. I know that Cleveland can run the ball, but there's no Nick Chubb and Dearness Johnson. He fared well against the Denver Broncos, but Bill Belichick is going to take away your favorite toy, and that's going to be the run game. So what he's going to do is take away the run game and force Baker Mayfield to beat him with Jarvis Landry and a bunch of tight ends. And I feel like Bill Belichick says that, all right, I feel like I can take away those guys with my linebackers and my secondary, so good luck. So therefore, I feel like this should be a kind of smackdown spot or whatever you want to call it for the Patriots this week, going against that Browns offense.
I agree with you. I have the Patriots ranked inside my top 10 defenses for the week. Well said, Tank. Minty, this next question is for you. It's from Stan. Stan wonders, which is your favorite underdog to win outright today? Keyword, obviously, underdog.
Ooh, I like so many today. Other than the Raiders that I gave out earlier for Sunday Night Football, I love the Seahawks to possibly win outright, and the Niners. And I also like Detroit possibly to get their first win against the Steelers today. Oh, yes, I love that you agree. So, yeah, Detroit.
Yes, I love Detroit getting their first win this week. Yes, Mindy, preach it. All right, Matt, this next question is from Matt. So you are going to have to answer it. A.J. Dillon, Jerry Jeudy, Eno Benjamin, or J.D. McKissick?
This one's interesting. We got 2 guys that I really like this week in A.J. Dillon and Jerry Jeudy. Eno Benjamin and J.D. McKissick, I think, are not really in the same tier as those 2 players. And I would go with Jerry Jeudy, who I think can have a Keenan Allen type of game against this Eagles defense. Again, we've mentioned it a couple times on the show, or at least I have. I hear myself just ringing over and over and over again in my own head. Unbelievably boring output there. But I think, slot receiver there for Jerry Jeudy, 75% of his snaps on the inside. That's where you want to target and beat this Eagles defense. I think Teddy Bridgewater will be plenty happy to oblige.
Okay, we're going to get to this next one. You know what? It's just, I'm not going to deal with Matt or Tank for this question. Andy, you be the cool head that prevails. This question obviously is going to include Jacoby Myers, Ernest Johnson. It's a fleck, and it is a PPR league.
We're still including Jacoby Myers in these questions, huh? Okay. It probably wouldn't be Jacoby Myers for me. I'm going to go Ernest Johnson here. I'm not even going to mess with the whole Niners, do I say his name, how much of his name do I say thing. I'm not going there at all. I'm just going to play Ernest Johnson. I'm going to chase volume here. I understand the appeal of the other guy, the Niners receiver, but I'm just going to go with the guy who's probably going to get 20 touches in this thing. Give me Ernest Johnson.
And that is why they call him the Reverend. We are blessed. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thanks for kicking off your Sunday with us. Remember, keep up with the latest on our podcast, the Fantasy Football Forecast, all week. You can find more wager talk daily on Mad Bet. Matt Minty, in fact, will be back in just about 90 minutes on Yahoo Sportsbook Live. And, of course, we will see you back here next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Good luck to all of your fantasy teams in Week 10.